As the end of summer approached, my wife and I felt the pull of the outdoors and the urge to embark on one final camping adventure before the cool autumn breezes set in. With a trove of camping gear gathering dust from my college days, we eagerly anticipated the chance to breathe new life into our equipment. There was a special spot we used to frequent, not your typical designated campground, but rather a hidden gem we stumbled upon during one of our exploratory outings. It held fond memories of camaraderie and wilderness escapades, and I was excited to share it with my wife, knowing it would make for the perfect getaway. Upon our arrival at the familiar spot, we couldn't help but notice signs of prior visitation, a haphazardly constructed fire pit, and remnants of scattered trash. Yet, these indicators of past occupancy didn't deter us in the slightest. With a sense of nostalgia mingled with anticipation, we set about pitching our tent, eager to settle in for a night under the stars. As twilight descended and the fire crackled to life, casting dancing shadows around our campsite, we felt a sense of tranquility wash over us. The air was filled with the sweet scent of pine and the gentle symphony of nocturnal creatures. It was the epitome of serenity, until it wasn't. In the dead of night, just as we had nestled comfortably into our sleeping bags, the peace was shattered by an abrupt and unmistakable sound, the guttural roar of a chainsaw. My wife and I exchanged bewildered glances, scarcely able to comprehend the source of such a jarring disruption in the tranquil wilderness. Before we could rationalize this anomaly, the eerie silence was punctuated by a chilling chorus of manic laughter that seemed to echo through the trees, sending shivers down our spines. Instinctively, we doused the fire and retreated into the safety of our tent, heartbeats racing in unison as we grappled with the unnerving uncertainty of the situation. The darkness seemed to press in around us, amplifying every creak and rustle of the night. Armed with nothing more than a machete for reassurance, we huddled together, clinging to the hope that the darkness outside held no genuine threat. Minutes stretched into hours as we lay in tense anticipation, acutely aware of every subtle shift in the night. Just as we dared to entertain the notion of sleep, I was jolted awake by an ominous sensation, a prickling at the back of my neck that signaled something amiss. The stillness was shattered by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, drawing nearer with each passing moment. My wife and I exchanged silent, wide-eyed glances, our breaths caught in our throats as we strained to discern the source of the approaching footsteps. The tension in the air was palpable as the footsteps drew closer, each footfall echoing like a drumbeat in the silence of the night. With mounting apprehension, we braced ourselves for whatever lay beyond the fabric walls of our tent, a sense of dread coiling in the pit of our stomachs. In a breathless moment of uncertainty, my wife proposed a daring escape, a mad dash for the safety of our car. Yet, something within me hesitated, a primal instinct urging caution in the face of the unknown. Gripping the machete tightly in my trembling hand, I weighed the risks against the possibility of danger lurking just beyond the canvas walls. Through the thin veil of the tent, I caught a glimpse of shadowy figures looming in the darkness, their presence looming like specters against the backdrop of the night. It was a sight that sent a chill down my spine, a silent reminder of the precariousness of our situation. For what felt like an eternity, we remained frozen in place, locked in a silent standoff with the unseen figures beyond. It was a moment fraught with tension, a delicate balance between fear and resolve. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the shadowy figures melted back into the darkness, leaving us with a fleeting window of opportunity. With adrenaline coursing through our veins, we seized the moment, abandoning our campsite in a frantic scramble for safety. As we raced toward the sanctuary of our car, the engine roaring to life at the touch of a button, I couldn't shake the lingering sense of unease that clung to me like a shroud. It was a nightmarish ordeal that would haunt us for years to come, leaving us with more questions than answers. In the cold light of dawn, we returned to the desolate remnants of our campsite, a sobering reminder of the night's harrowing events. Our belongings were gone, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the lingering specter of what might have been.
My name's Ben, and today I've got quite the story to share with you, straight from the rugged wilderness of Australia's southeast. Nestled within the vast expanse of Victoria lies the breathtaking high country, a remote and untamed landscape of alpine mountains and winding valleys. Now, let me tell you about a little adventure my partner Jess and I embarked on in this wild frontier. You see, we're both avid four-wheelers, and when the opportunity arose for a camping trip in the high country, we couldn't resist. Picture this. Loaded up with all our gear, double-checked lists, and a full tank of gas, we set out for a few days of blissful isolation. And trust me, a break from the hustle and bustle of the world was exactly what we needed. Our destination? Wangata Valley, a remote and picturesque spot deep in the heart of the high country. Surrounded by towering mountains and cradled by a winding river, it was the perfect setting for our little getaway. After a day of driving, we finally arrived at our secluded campsite, just as the sun began its descent behind the mountains. With our tent pitched and a cozy fire crackling nearby, we settled in for the night, relishing the tranquility of our surroundings. But as the night wore on, things took a strange turn. I woke to the sound of something rustling outside our tent, dismissing it as just another critter rummaging around. Little did I know, the night was about to take a chilling turn. The next morning, as we emerged from our tent, we were greeted by a bizarre sight. Our campsite seemed different. Chairs rearranged, bread mysteriously appearing on the table. It was like someone had been there while we slept, and the footprints near our vehicle only added to our unease. Determined to shake off our nerves, I decided to explore the area, venturing to an old homestead across the valley. But what Jess saw while I was gone sent shivers down her spine, a mysterious figure watching her from across the river. As we grappled with the unsettling events, things only grew stranger. We encountered an enigmatic man at our campsite, clad in tattered clothes and carrying a deer antler. His presence only added to the sense of unease that hung in the air. With each passing moment, it became clear that something was amiss in the high country. Stories of the Button Man, a mysterious figure who roamed the wilderness, leaving a trail of unanswered questions in his wake, only served to deepen our sense of dread. In the end, we made a hasty retreat, leaving behind the valley and its mysteries. But the memory of that eerie encounter still lingers, a reminder of the strange and unpredictable nature of the wilderness. So there you have it, folks. The tale of how we came face to face with the Button Man in the wilds of the high country. And let me tell you, it's a story I won't be forgetting anytime soon.
This incident dates back to my middle school days. It was during summer and my parents had enrolled me in a month-long summer camp exclusively for boys. Picture this, a campsite nestled in the woods comprising 6 or 7 quaint cabins, a serene lake, scattered fire pits, and if memory serves me right, even a sand volleyball court. Located a good 4-hour drive away from town, the campsite had that rustic charm despite its somewhat run-down appearance. Upon arrival, I settled into one of the cabins, unpacking my belongings and arranging my bed. Eager to explore, some of the kids and I decided to venture into the forest before dinner. The camp rules were fairly lax. We were allowed to roam as long as the cabins remained in sight. As we wandered, one of the kids spotted something, or rather, someone, nearby. It was a man, likely in his 50s, casting an unsettling gaze in our direction. He appeared disheveled, almost resembling a vagrant. Tattered clothes, unkempt beard. Initially, we brushed it off, assuming he was one of the camp counselors. I mustered an awkward wave in his direction before we hurried back to our cabin. Later that evening, we confided in one of the camp counselors about the encounter. They seemed alarmed, promising to investigate the matter. However, by the time they ventured into the woods, the mysterious man had vanished. It dawned on us that most of the counselors were teenagers, none older than 30, and they seemed clueless about the man's identity. In the ensuing days, our explorations dwindled as unease lingered among us. Then on the 4th night, things took a terrifying turn. I was jolted awake by the sound of the cabin door handle rattling. Typically, a counselor would check in around 11 p.m. to remind us to lock up. But this felt different. With no sense of time, I called out, assuming it was just a routine check. To my horror, a flashlight pierced through the darkness, its beam scanning the cabin's interior through the windows. I motioned for the others to stay low as the intruder circled our cabin, illuminating every corner. Whether they spotted me remains uncertain, but the light grazed over me several times before abruptly vanishing after what felt like an eternity. I recounted the ordeal to my cabin mates, and with the aid of a watch, we learned it was 4 a.m. The realization dawned on us. It wasn't a counselor. Come morning, we wasted no time in reporting the incident to a teenage counselor who promptly escalated the matter to the adults. What followed chilled us to the bone. Another camper had encountered a similar intruder attempting to pick their cabin's lock. Descriptions matched, the bearded man in dirty attire, evoking memories of our encounter in the forest. In a swift and decisive move, the camp was canceled and a bus arrived to ferry us back home. Years later, I delved into the incident, stumbling upon a brief police report. Authorities had discovered a tent in the vicinity, housing essentials alongside a trove of Polaroid pictures. Scenes from the camp, the cabins, the lake, and chillingly, snapshots of U.S. kids. Many taken covertly through cabin windows under the cloak of night. Despite their efforts, the perpetrator was never apprehended, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread and unanswered questions.
Today, I've got a wild camping tale to share with you, straight from the heart of an unforgettable adventure. So buckle up and get ready for a story you won't soon forget. It all started with a simple plan. My then-girlfriend and I decided to head out for a camping trip to celebrate her birthday and our anniversary. Packed up and ready to roll, we hit the road just after a massive storm had swept through the area. Arriving at our destination in the early afternoon, we were thrilled to find plenty of daylight left to set up camp. As we entered the campground, the guy at the entrance mentioned that we were the only ones there. "This is going to be unreal," my girlfriend exclaimed, and I couldn't help but agree. Little did we know, things were about to take a turn for the bizarre. We drove down winding pathways to our designated spot, but as we neared it, the road abruptly ended in a dead end. This meant our only way out was to reverse all the way back. Not exactly ideal. Nevertheless, we unloaded the car, set up our tent, and decided to explore the surrounding woods. But as we wandered deeper into the forest, we stumbled upon something strange, a row of eerie white cabins, seemingly out of place and devoid of life. It gave us a creepy vibe, like we didn't belong there. Uneasy, we quickly retreated back to our campsite. Back at the tent, we attempted to start a fire, but quickly realized we were in over our heads. Armed with self-lighting logs and lighter fluid, we struggled to ignite anything in the soggy aftermath of the storm. The reality of our unpreparedness began to sink in, casting a shadow over our excitement. As darkness fell, we huddled by a small fire, munching on hot dogs and marshmallows while gazing at the stars. But our peaceful evening took a sinister turn when we heard footsteps, heavy and unmistakable, approaching our tent. Frozen with fear, we listened as the footsteps drew closer, accompanied by low murmurs that sent chills down our spines. It felt like an eternity as we sat in silence, waiting for whatever was out there to reveal itself. But when the sounds suddenly ceased, we knew we had to act. With adrenaline coursing through our veins, we dashed to the car, abandoning our camp in a panic. Fueled by fear, we drove blindly through the darkness, desperately searching for a way out. And as we fled, a strange green glow in the distance caught my eye, a chilling reminder of the horror we had left behind. Hours later, safe and sound at home, we vowed never to speak of that fateful camping trip again. And as for camping, well, let's just say it's not exactly at the top of our to-do list anymore. So there you have it, the tale of our unforgettable camping misadventure. And trust me, it's a story we won't soon forget.